Today's session is about using how we can use RESTful APIs in AngularJS web applications. So have you worked with Angular? Anyone? Only one?
I have some knowledge from Angular.
Okay. So anyway, this session I will cover the basics of AngularJS, along with the main focus will be how we can use RESTful APIs in Angular. And I think all of you must have used RESTful APIs, right? Okay. Okay, so the agenda for this session will be, we'll cover some basic REST concepts and the basic AngularJS concepts, along with how we can use RESTful APIs in AngularJS. So we will discuss some detail in ngResource, which is a module of AngularJS, along with some demo application. So what is REST? What is REST? It's just a concept, right? It nothing but a concept which we are using while developing our web services, right? So it's a concept where we use HTTP methods to sum up. Yeah. So REST concept is mainly focused on CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete. Those 4 operations, and it maps the HTTP methods to the CRUD operations. Like for create, we are using post; for read, we are using get; for update, it's put; and for delete, it's HTTP delete method. And this REST is resource oriented. So we will cover how the REST is resource oriented, what is resource, and how it is resource oriented. Now let's see how the RESTful URIs look like. So usually in our normal APIs, we use something like, let's say we want to create something, create a new user, let's say. Then we are posting some data, right, to an API, and the API URL looks like maybe something like user/new, something like that. And while reading, fetching a data, let's say we want to fetch a particular record, particular user data, let's say, then just we need to pass the ID to that URL, to a specific URL. And to update, again, the post method, to update, again, we are using the post method, and the data is getting posted, and the URL will be something like user/update, something like that. And again, to delete, again, we are using get method. Usually we use get method, and again, the URL will something like user/delete, and user ID we are passing as the get parameter. Now for REST concept, since we need to match the HTTP methods to our CRUD operations, so for create we are using post, and the URL will look like something /user. Let's say we want to create a new user, then our URL will look like something /user. Then we need to post the data. If the method is post, then it will create the user. The API will try to create a new record. Now read means it's the get, fetch the record. and the URL will look like something like user slash the ID, user slash 1, any user ID. For update, again, the URL will look like something user slash user ID, and it will be a put method. If it's a put method, means it will try to update a specific record. And again, for similarly for delete, the method should be HTTP method should be delete, and the URL will look like something user slash user ID. So this is actually this is how usually the RESTful URLs works. And for post and put, create and update, we need to pass the whole data in some format. It can be a JSON format, or it can be an XML format. So now the resource. What is resource in REST? So if you can see this URLs, for get, it is some domain name slash user. For post, domain name slash user. Let's say I want to create a user, then I will use the URL something like test my host name slash user. To get the data of the user, I will use the URL something like user slash 1. Similarly for put, to update, it will use URL something like user slash 1. And again for delete, again the URL is same. You can see the three. For post it's different, but for get, put and delete, the URL is same. Only the method is different. So based on the method, it will identify which operation need to be performed. If we need to fetch the user, or we need to update the user, or we need to delete the user. So the HTTP methods is the server use the HTTP method to identify which process need to be done. Now the resource. So here the resource is the user. So since the REST is always concentrates on the resource, so here in this case the resource will be the user. Now let's say I want to fetch all orders. Let's say web orders are there, I want to fetch orders. Then in that case the URL will be something like my domain name slash orders. In that case the resource will be the orders. Now representation, so in REST there is something called representation. It is nothing but the data representation. After calling an API, we are getting some response from the API, right? So it is the format JSON or XML which is called the representation of the data, the response which we are getting from the RESTful API. So that is the basics of the RESTful architecture, how the RESTful APIs work. So now we can start with AngularJS, the basics of AngularJS. So since only few of you have worked with Angular, right? Only you. Yeah, Devabrata as well. Okay. So AngularJS, it's a JavaScript framework which we usually use to develop web applications, and mainly we use AngularJS to develop the single page application, single page SPA web solutions. And also with AngularJS we can provide a MVC architecture to our web application. All of you are familiar with MVC, right? Okay. So this is the very basic structure of how AngularJS works. So in Angular we have models. Models means it's the data, the JavaScript API which stores the data. So we call APIs and whatever response we get, the data, we store them to the models, and model can talk to the view, which are the web pages, the interface, web interface, and based on the model data, the view, the view reflects automatically. And AngularJS also has it has routing property as well. So based on the URL, it automatically calls a specific function and get the data and refresh the view. So mainly routing is helpful for bookmarking some of the URLs. So this is the very basic. Internally it is a bit complex, but this is very basic structure how AngularJS works in a web application. So now since we will be concentrating on how we can use a RESTful structure, RESTful architecture in AngularJS, so we need to cover some of the basics of Angular services. There is something called Angular services. It's nothing. Services means it's nothing but the JavaScript object which we can create, or there are inbuilt services as well, in which there will be some business logic which we can reuse, in different places in our web application. The same reusable business logic. So there are some built-in services like HTTP resources. HTTP means it's just the AJAX call we usually makes in our web application, and resources which will be again, this is also means this is the structure which we will be covering in our next section. Now there are some other services as well, like queue, anchor, scroll, cache factory. So I'm not going in detail with all these built-in web services. So only thing is, these web services are these are the Angular services which are JavaScript objects, and these are reusable components in AngularJS application. So AngularJS has many built-in modules. So ngResource is one of them, one of the module, and ngResource has the service resource, which is used in the RESTful web services, to call RESTful web services, to fetch to get the data and to post the data as well. And for installation of this ngResource, it's simple. Only we need to include AngularResource.js, a separate JavaScript file which is not included in AngularJS, but it's a separate. We can include that as well. So to create a resource object, so we know what is a resource in RESTful API, right? Just means in our previous slides I have showed you how the user, let's say we want to do some of the operation in user data, then user will be the resource for the web API. So we can define the resource object of AngularJS something like this: the URL, the default parameters, the actions, and the options. Okay, so just the syntax: user, resource, the web URL, and some of the default parameters. So here you can see there is a colon user ID, and the default parameter is user ID @ID. Now @ID means whatever user object, let's say we will try to post, it will check for the ID property of that object and pass it here in the URL. Okay, we'll check that in the in our demo application. And also, if you can see this, let's say I will call this resource object user by passing user ID 123, let's say. Then it will try to call the URL like /user/123. Okay, so this resource service is having it automatically have a few methods like get, save, query, remove or delete. So get to fetch the data, save to post the data and save it in the server, query again to get multiple records where we need to define is array true, means it will expect an array response. And remove and delete both are same, both are used to put a delete method to the server. Now let's go to a demo application. So it's a simple demo actually. Where I can create books. I can display the list of books. I can modify any of the books, and I can delete the books, let's say. Now let's check how the code look like. Okay, so for the simplicity purpose, I have added all the JavaScript in the same page, no MVC architecture here. So this is the basic HTML structure, and if you go through Angular, so it binds to the view by this method, the JavaScript variable, and within a double curly braces, means it will try to render the data in that area. And I have included both AngularJS, Angular main, and Angular resources. Now I've created a module MyApp, and whenever you create a specific module, and if you want that module to be active in a specific section of a web page, you need to add this ngApp and the module. So I have included in the HTML tag itself, so that my module will be active throughout this application. So if you see this code, I have created a module and injected ngResource module there, so that I will be able to use ngResource, and I need to create a controller as well. The controller name is main controller, MAINCTL, let's say, and here also I need to inject resource service, which is included in ngResource module. And scope is also another service which defines the scope which will be active, all the variables of that scope which will be active within that controller. Now to define a book service, sorry, a book resource.
Can you please increase the font size?
Let me try. Control plus is not working. Control plus not working. maybe I can use. Yeah, I can change the editor. No, still some issues here. Some resolution issue maybe. Is it okay? Okay. So this is the JavaScript part where I've included Angular and ngResource. Now to use ngResource in a module, we need to inject ngResource module there. So I have defined my app as the module, my module which I will be using in this application, and there I have injected ngResource. Now I need to create a controller as well. So my app controller, this is the controller name, and here I need to inject this resource services which is available in ngResource module. Now scope is, it is where I can define all my data and which will be active or available within this controller main CTL. Now I need to create a resource. So since here my in this application where I want to view all my books, I want to add books, edit books, and delete books. So I here the resource will be the book resource, which I have defined like this: the URL book service, web API, books, ID, and the ID, the default data will be the ID. Whenever the ID will be available for while calling any of the operations, then it will automatically append the ID value here. And also I have defined the update method here, which we will discuss later. Since this update method is not available by default in this resource object, it only have create, sorry, let me show that. The default is get, save, query, remove, and delete. There is no update. We need to define it. So that's why I have defined this update method, and it will use put. Now let me go to the application. So you can see initially it shows all the book list. These are coming from the database by calling API. Now let me show you how we are calling this API. So I have defined a function called list, and scope list is a function which I have defined to fetch all the books, and what it does, it just calls a query function. Book is the resource which I have defined, and let me delete this portion. So just book.query. Book.query means it will automatically call the get method. Let me change that here as well. Book.query. So, and I have called this function after defining this function scope.list to fetch all books. Let me open the debugger here and let me refresh it. Okay, so it calls this get method to this web API/books, and let me show you the detail here. The headers. So the method is get without any ID. So it tries to fetch, the API is defined like that. It will try to fetch all the data, all the books, and the response is JSON response, which is here provided with all the book informations. 1, 2, 3, 4 books, and those are displayed here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now again let me go to the code. So what I have done is I have defined a book resource and added this by using this URL, which is the RESTful URL, and call to fetch all books. I have just called this query book.query, and what it does, it just send a get request to the server without any parameter. So the so as per the RESTful concept, it will try to fetch all the data, all the records. So all the records are fetched and provided to the user interface. So that is the list function which I have called here. Now let me go to my application, and if I want to fetch a specific book information, let's say I've added that functionality on the click event of individual books. So on clicking any of the books, it will fetch the book name and let's say the author. There is no more data, only book name and author. So what it does, there is again another get method is called with a specific ID, book 8. Now whenever the URL, there is a get request. Let me go to header. Whenever there is a get request with a ID, then it will try to fetch the specific resource value, because we are passing a specific ID of the resource with the get method. Now let me go to the code. So this is the get method actually, which is defined here. What it will do is it will call the get method book.get with the ID, whatever ID, book ID is there with that object. And here actually I have defined some of the response function. So whatever response will come, it is undefined. Okay. Update get. Okay, let me go to the HTML part first. So here is the code to display the books. This part, which is where we have defined this ng repeat directive. It is built into AngularJS to repeat through to loop through a specific array of objects and display the data. That is not working. And if you can see here on ng click, it is actually the event, means it is the Angular click event, and on click event we are calling this get function, get, and we are passing the ID here, whatever book ID is there. So then that this get function is getting called, and with the book ID, and what it does is with the book object it just call the get function with the ID, whatever ID is supplied via the function. And it has some success function. This is the success function. Means if the operation completed successfully, then whatever response will come up, it will just assign to the data to the selected object, which is getting displayed here, the selected object, so that the UI will get refreshed. So whenever I will hit or select, try to fetch the data of a specific book, then automatically it will call this URL, the resource URL, along with the ID, so that the respective data will be fetched. Now let me try to delete something. Let's say this HTML, delete. Okay, if you can see, it is calling this delete method. Again, the URL is same as the get one. Get and delete both are same URL, having same ID, only the method is different. So based on the method, the server API, the RESTful API will either fetch the data or delete that particular record. So if you see the code, the remove, I have called this remove functionality, defined this remove function which calls the delete function. So this is only a success function, we can remove this. So scope selected, delete. Scope selected, this scope selected, it is nothing but a book object, and this delete method, whenever I will call this delete method, automatically it will try to call this URL by passing the book ID, selected book ID, and the method will be delete. Now let me try to create one. Add book, we put some book name, let's say HTML5, then book author, let's say Mark. Okay, now what it does, the post method, it calls the post method with this URL, the resource URL. Now let me show you that detail. So it is a post method to the URL, and the data posted is I've defined to post the JSON data. So it posts the JSON data, author name, and whatever the book name I have provided, and the response in the response, okay, I have sent the response only success. So internally what it will do is it will check that, it will see that it is a post method, means it will try to create the record with the data. And okay, so something is wrong, it's not refreshing automatically, so let me refresh it. Okay, so this is the book which I have added. So it didn't refresh it automatically because let me show you the code. The add method, add. So here what I have done, okay, this is the prompt to get the data, title and author. Now what I have done is I have created a new object of the book resource. Then I have applied the name and the author. Then just call this save method. So automatically it will try to post it, call the post method, post HTTP method to the specific URL which is defined in the resource here. So since there is no ID, so ID will not be passed here, only up to this book, the resource URL, and it will post the data in JSON format, book name and book author. Okay, so the automatically refresh didn't work because, okay, I have called this scope.list method after the update, but I haven't called this in the success method, means success callback of this update method. That's why the auto refresh didn't work. So if I will call this, as the success function, okay, so book save, we don't need to pass any default parameter here, only the success function. and within success function, if we will call this list method, which will fetch all the book and just refresh the view. Oh, I need to save it here. Okay, let me try to add again a new book. Add book. Let's say Java part 1. The author, let's say Jack. Done. Okay, the book added, and the UI after the success, the callback function called up to list again to call the list function, which will again fetch all the book from the data from the server, and it will automatically refresh the UI. Now update. Okay, whenever I'm selecting a book, I have defined. Yeah, yeah, sure.
It's not a question, maybe a suggestion. Like when you are creating a resource or maybe updating a resource, you know that you need to refresh the data from the database.
Yeah, because the UI, I have designed the UI something like that, because whenever I will add something, then it need to be refresh the UI.
It's a bad design practice in fact.
Yeah.
Because you have already the scope available.
Yeah.
The models available in the scope. What do you need to do with that?
Yeah, we can only refresh the JavaScript object, right? JavaScript model,
Yeah,
the model data.
When you create a new resource, automatically it returns that resource data in fact.
Yeah, we can return that same resource as well.
What you need to do is that you need to pick that particular resource data and push it to the model. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Without refreshing the data from the database.
Yeah. See, yeah. So what I'm saying is, this is not the best of the architecture of the application. So only I want to show you how this Angular resource works. This is not the best of the architecture. This is not MVC only. I have added all the code in a single page. Okay, so here what I am doing is again calling the callback function to fetch all the data again from the server. Instead of that, what you can do is you can just put the data in the model again, right? The JavaScript model again, so that the UI will refresh automatically. Yeah, that can be done as well. So only I need to show you how this callback function works. That's why I've added some of the callback functions. So same thing for the update. Now let me open the console, debug console. Okay, let me try to update this one, jQuery fundamental. Let's I will put something like for beginner. Okay, no author change. Okay, again it didn't refresh the UI because of some coding issue. Okay, but the changes are reflected in the server. Now let me show you how this update thing work. So you can see there is a put method, put to update the data, again specific for a specific ID. And let me show you what are the data. Put maybe it is gone from the console. Let me try to update again. Java beginners update 1 2 3. Okay. Okay. Now put method, book ID is 11, book ID is 11, method is put, and the data, okay, it just put the data, send the data to the server via the put method, the new data whatever I have entered. Okay, I have in the response I have only sending the either success or failure, so it is a success. Now if I will refresh, the changes will reappear, this one which I have updated. Now let's go to the code again. So update, since there is no update method which is defined automatically whenever we are creating a resource object, so that's why I have added my function called update. Whenever there is an update method called, it will do a put request to the server. So okay, again this is to get the new data, new title and new author. Now the book object, which is the selected book object, scope selected, the name is supplied with the new title and the new author, and the ID part is already there, and then this update method is called, and update method will try to do a put request with the data along with the ID, so that's why it will try to, the API will try to update the data and send the response to the client. And here also, since I have defined this to call this list function again, but it is not called in the callback function, so that's why it is not getting refreshed, the changes are not getting reflected automatically. I can do the same as well, just like this. No additional parameter, only the success function. So whenever there will be a success, it will just again call the list function, which will again refresh all the data and refresh the UI. Okay, so that's all for the session. So if you have questions. Yeah.
I would like to find out the answer we have. So how do you use Prometheus in ngResource, and what are the trade-offs between using Prometheus and not using Prometheus?
Okay, using promises and not using promises. Okay.
How do you use it, first of all? What are the trade-offs between using it and not using it?
Okay. So first of all, see, internally it is calling Ajax call, right? Ajax call.
ngResource doesn't use Prometheus API basically. HTTP can, on HTTP service uses, but resource doesn't use Prometheus API. So how do you in fact use it, and what is the trade-off?
Okay, see, Angular has a promise service as well. This P. Let me go back. So since there are several built-in services which is already available in Angular, Q is one of them. Q is used to serve that promise thing. So let's say we are calling any API. Maybe it can be a HTTP call, or it can be a call via resource service. So we need to find out if it is completed successfully or not, and after completing we need to do something. So whenever there is a call, Ajax call, there will be a success and failure. So anyway, after success, we need to show something. We may need to.
In your case, like you give the example that doesn't it use promise, right? Does it use promise?
Yeah. That promise means that I have.
The resource service doesn't use the promise API.
No, here I haven't used that queue part. But we can use because same thing can be achieved by this success or failure function, right? Promise means what? We need to do. It will send a.
But if you do this way, basically, it will not be through asynchronous call. It will be synchronous call.
No. Yeah. So promises means. Yeah, through promise also. Yeah, promise also it will be async, right? It will be async.
In your case, is it asynchronous or is it synchronous?
It will be okay. See, let me show you the code again. Okay, so let's say I have called this service along with list. There is no promise here.
Yeah.
So it will be async, no synchronous. Maybe this delete process is separate, and it will not wait for any response or anything. It will just call this list. So that's why there may be chances that the delete process is not completed yet, but the list, this function will be called and the response will come with all the data. So the delete operation will not reflect here, might not reflect here, but here it will be asynchronous. This will be asynchronous, and but for update, let's say for update, I have defined this function success, means for it will call this API, update API will be called. It will wait till there is a success function. Now this thing will get executed. The next, whatever next is defined, but this function will be called only whenever there will be a success response from this update operation.
Okay, so this is the asynchronous call.
Yeah.
And how it differs from the promise call? How it differs from a promise call?
Promise is also the same, like this. It will work. That will work like this. The syntax will be something like update dot. Instead of this success, I can call this success function. There won't be any success function then. It will be something like update dot dollar promise then dot then the success function then comma the error function. So it will work something like this. Again, the promise service means it need to the update process need to send response something, the promise. So if it get a success response, then this function will be called. Failure response, another set of code will be called.
So both versions are same.
Yeah, mostly almost same.
And
What I have found.
For only single Ajax form, that will look like same. For if we have two Ajax calls, that should be done like when first Ajax call submit, then second Ajax call depends on the success of first Ajax call.
Yeah.
Then in that case, this promise can be saying that this can be effective. Like for normal Ajax call, what we get when we get success, then we show some dialog box or something. If you do the same with this promise, that will be the same. But when we use two different AJAX calls, then there will be async process. The second AJAX call will not depend on the first AJAX call.